Elemental Shaman is bonkers, and it only gets better. If you haven't played Elemental yet, you are 100% missing out on the highest dopamine hits you can get from playing a caster, except for Mage when it isn't nerfed. But what's better is that in just 1 week, the anniversary patch will hit and the reworked Elemental will bring it to new levels of fun and damage. Elemental Shaman was reworked going into the War Within, and arguably the rework has improved its base kit. There's a catch, however, and that catch is called Flash Lightning. Understanding the sound is important if you want to understand what builds you have to play and why you are playing them, especially if you've heard people playing Elemental Shaman at the beginning of the season. If degeneracy could be a talent, it would be called Flash Lightning. This bad boy gives Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning a 10% crit chance, which is fine already, but on top of it makes it so when you are casting either of these spells, the cooldown of your nature spells gets reduced by 1 second. And I learned on my own what this means by leveling and gearing my own Elemental Shaman, which I 100% recommend you do as well. What? You don't have World of Warcraft yet? No problem. You can buy it cheap on Kinguin. What? You want to play 1,337 other games too? No problem. You can buy them quick on Kinguin. Kinguin is an online platform that offers games, prepaid cards, and gift cards at much lower prices, whether they be for WoW or even game time. Click the link down below and use our code MARCE, that's M-A-R-C-E, for an 8% discount. Thank you, Kinguin. I geared my Elemental to 591 item level real quick to at least test some of these changes and managed to time a +7 and almost miss the +8. The damage I was able to do started to really shine in bigger and bigger pools where I started to outscale some teammates with no tier set and about 15 item levels lower. Elemental can really pump. And I do have to say that the cooldown reduction feedback loop felt really nice and likely the main reason I was able to push this high, since I just had way more uptime on defensives, kicks, and crowd controls. And if anything, it reminded me of vanilla Shaman, where spamming lightning bolts was the bread and butter. The reason Flash Lightning is so degenerate is because the cooldown reduction is actually very high, so high in fact that you will never cast Lava Burst no matter what build you have, unless it is with Primordial Wave to get the haste buff, or as an instant lava surge consumer when you have to move. Considering that this was once the source of Master of the Elements buff, which you cannot not take, and you actively ignore it, it paints a picture of how strong Flash is. It reduces the cooldown of Storm Elemental and Stormkeeper, giving you a big DPS increase. Not to mention, Storm Elemental already buffs you with shorter cast times of Lightning Bolt that can be faster than a second, and the cycle just feeds itself into more bolts, more elementals, which means more bolts. On top of this, your defensives are also considered nature spells and they also get their cooldown reduced. Played perfectly, you essentially reduce most if not all of the spell's cooldown to half of what they normally are. This changes what the spec is and does to a heavy degree and obviously gives it a lot of power. It's important to understand this because although Flash Lightning is a really cool concept and the playstyle is fun, it is overpowering any potential variety and spec depth to the point where you legit have no choice in how you build and play your Elemental. This is important because in 11.05, Flash Lightning will no longer give you the cooldown reduction. Functionally, this is a good change for the spec and the damage loss is gained through other means, plus whatever tuning will eventually happen if it is a problem. The main downside is that you will be noticeably squishier in higher level content since your defensives are back to their original cooldown. So once the anniversary patch hits live, Flash Lightning goes away. Well, the cooldown reduction part. And in exchange, we get a plethora of amazing new talents. Stormbringer gets some changes as well, which in turn makes it incredibly strong. So strong that if we don't see Farseer buffs, you will likely not play it at all. Farseer, that is. As for the actual changes for Stormbringer, first, you may have already noticed that the Tempest stacks to 2 and Storekeeper stacks to 3, which were changes announced a few weeks ago for the 11.05 patch that just made it into live. That aside, Shocking Grasp has been replaced by a choice node with Lightning Conduit and Electroshock. Lightning Conduit makes it so you occasionally get struck by lightning, giving you massive move speed all the way to 100% in open world content. This is reminiscent of the Rider of the Apocalypse Charger and Paladin Divine Steed abilities from Death Knight and Paladin respectively. The fact that it's RNG kind of makes it useless unless you are doing world quests and stuff. It also makes you cast Thunderstorm when you reincarnate, kind of a PvP thing, but can have super niche uses in Mythic Plus. Electroshock will make casting Tempest increase your movement speed by 20% for 5 seconds. Although this is predictable and controllable, it is still likely just as unreliable since you will never hold off Tempest for the move speed, and if you do, a 20% increase isn't significant enough where you want to play around it. I might just go with Conduit personally since it seems more fun. The Supercharge node will now be a choice node between it and Stormswell, previously in the middle, which frees up Arc Discharge to always be available since you always took it anyway. Now it will also be even better since it will affect Lightning Bolt as well as Chain Lightning, and it won't matter how many targets you hit with Tempest. Great change. And lastly, the choice node regarding your survivability has been changed. The new talents are named the same, but reworked. Nature's Protection makes Lightning Shield also give you a permanent 3% damage reduction, so kind of like your own personal devotion aura, and Surging Currents will now make Tempest give you this buff which increase the effectiveness of Chain Heal and Healing Surge by 20% up to 100%. This feels a bit like a downgrade, since to get the value of it you need multiple targets hit, which is already a big condition to it, also not specified in the tooltip by the way, but you heal for more, which is great, but it won't be instant anymore, and it will also cost mana. Gameplay wise, it will feel worse to press your heals. Functionally, the global will be stronger on its own, up to you if you want to play it in the end. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. You will notice a lot of talents have been moved around and some new ones replacing old ones. Skybreaker's demise is gone, unfortunately, after 4 glorious years of elemental cooldown reduction. But we get Erupting Lava in its place. This makes Flame Shock stronger by lasting 6 more seconds and doing a whopping 50% more damage, but also Lava Burst will now consume 3 seconds of the dot to deal that damage instantly. The overloads from Lava Burst will only be half as effective in this tech though. This is a controversial talent since we already have a similar one for Destrolock, which sucks as a gameplay mechanic. It adds more Flame Shocks to your rotation, an overall boring way to play. It could be more interesting in AoE when there are more ways to apply Flame Shocks, but we'll get to that in a minute. Unrelenting Calamity is gone and replaced with Stormkeeper. Flow of Power also replaced with Fury of the Storms, which moved in accordance to the new position of Stormkeeper. This is now also a choice node with Herald of the Storms, a new talent that reduces the cooldown of Stormkeeper by 2 seconds whenever you cast Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, or Tempest. Herald is likely a replacement for the cooldown reduction lost from Flash Lightning, but you don't get the Elemental anymore as a trade-off. A new talent will take the position of Eye of the Storm, which moved elsewhere. Earth Shatter increases the damage of your spenders, Earth Shock and Earthquake, by 8% and makes Elemental Blast give you 25% more stats. A bunch of movement at the bottom of the tree happened, and the end result is that we have a new capstone called Charged Conduit, increasing the duration of Rod by 4 seconds and its damage bonus by 25%. The damage is part and parcel of a capstone, while the duration makes AoE feel way better and even more damage since the uptime of the effect will be increased across the board. And now the meat of the rework, the new Ascendance. On top of the dope-ass new models, which we covered on our second channel, the effect will now finally be applicable to any builds, not just fire. Ascendance will now pop up to 6 Flame Shocks on nearby enemies and launch a Lava Burst at each one as well. While you have the effect, you no longer have the Lava Beam, but your overload damage is increased by 150% and all your overloads from your mastery will trigger an extra overload. Oh yes, and Lava Burst animations have also improved. Oh my god! This is the coolest shit since sliced bread. It can have some gnarly combos with Primordial Wave as well, which now automatically triggers Lava Surge. You can pop your Ascendance, put up all of the Flame Shocks needed, and after the obligatory Lava Bursts, you can Primordial Wave and shoot 6 more Lava Bursts out. And if any of them overloads, it deals 150% more damage. And overloads again! Meatball party for everyone. Of course, the overloads apply to lightning spells as well, and maybe even mountains will fall. I mean, technically it should work, it does in practice as well, but whether or not we end up picking the talent is the real question. It could be what was missing to make this into a cool visual upgrade that ends up stacking dozens of earthquakes on top of each other, making the visual seem upgraded. But in fact, you are just breaking Azeroth apart. For real, not sure why shamans aren't criminals at this point, considering how many times we have to save Azeroth from things cracking the crust. It will come down to how good mastery is and how much we want to play into overloads. I hope we do. God, I hope we do. Deep-rooted elements has been changed as well, and now it will proc from your spenders, again breaking it away from the mandatory lava burst casts and giving it a universal application. One last change is Ice Fury, which followed the example of deep-rooted elements, or was it the other way around? And it now also will proc from more than just lava burst, specifically from lightning bolt, chain lightning, and tempest as well. This will streamline the rotation a bit and give it more play, albeit with making lava burst less impactful. And that's a bit ironic since most of the changes take power away from fire abilities and make them universal, a problem we already have on live, where lava burst is a DPS loss to cast outside primordial wave and movement situations. We probably need to have lava burst be buffed a bit, since its synergies and procs have been shared with lightning spells now. Maybe Mash of the Elements needs to be stronger again to give more incentive to Lava Burst, although that created some crazy difficult to execute playstyles in the past expansions, so who knows. All of these changes will drastically change, the playstyle of Elemental with a focus on more shaman spells rather than just fire or just lightning. There are still unused talents and sims that have to be made by the big brains of the shaman community to see what builds we will end up playing. As for the direct changes, you will notice the ascendance combo will be the most visual one. Regardless of builds, you will likely end up taking ascendance and primordial wave, giving you an incredible burst potential. First of all, popping ascendance will put 6 flame shocks, assuming you are fighting an AoE and with enough targets, and shoot 6 lava bursts at enemies. Then you will likely shoot your primordial wave and lava burst again, shooting at all 6 flame shocks targets again. You might actually cast primordial wave before ascendance, would be my guess, to limit the amount of weak globals during your damage window. That means you effectively shoot out 12 lava bursts within the span of 3 globals, and that is if they don't overload, which is a big if, since you will 100% overload at least 1 lava burst, and each overloaded lava burst means 2 more lava bursts, and if the RNG gods smite you, you could have a total of 36 lava bursts, which is a ridiculous number to comprehend within the context of WoW combat. But even with that, the animations are incredible. You'll be a legit artillery machine when pressing Ascendance, a fitting effect for a long overdue change on the cooldown. Only question remains with erupting lava. I mentioned earlier about AoE applications of Flame Shock. First of all, it remains to be seen if we can afford to take Magma Totem, assuming we will be talenting into the new Lightning Rod capstone, especially with Stormkeeper. If we end up using Magma Totem and erupting lava, that will give us multiple applications of Flame Shocks, making it easier to maintain in AoE. Also, on the topic of Magma Totem, the loss of cooldown reduction from Flash Lightning makes this and Primordial Wave not aligned anymore, since Magma Totem has a 24-second cooldown and Primordial Wave a 30-second cooldown. This makes it awkward, since you kinda really always want to use them together. Maybe this is an oversight that can be rectified. Hopefully. One spec people seem to be downplaying for legit reasons though is Fury Warrior, which, similar to Elemental, spams buttons and is explosive as fuck. And because of the nerfs, people don't like it anymore. But what if I told you the nerfs didn't actually kill it? How about you check our video out?